Hello, sports fans. It is Wednesday, December the 10th, the year 2014. And as always, a lot to get to in the sports world, so let's get it going right now. Great to be back with you guys, and we are going to talk a little college football today. And we are joined by Mr. Joe Spano from Sirius Satellite Radio by way of the Sports Bylines. Joe, welcome.
Well said, Mike. Long time no see. It's been too long between visits. We got some ground to cover. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about who's in, who's out, and just have a good old time like we always do.
Now, I know you're dying to get to who made the Final Four playoff. Now, we haven't really discussed this. I sent you an email on it, but I don't know your feelings on it.
I didn't tell you. If you noticed,
You did.
I did save something.
You did. You
And
kept
I
it.
saved that for when we
Now,
got together.
the way I see it, Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, in whatever order, are no-brainers.
No-brainers. Absolutely.
Came
You're in.
down-
It doesn't matter what order you're in. You go play.
It came down to Ohio State, Baylor, and TCU. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion. I said it over email. I think the committee got it right, and here's why. First of all, Ohio State just plastered Wisconsin 59-0 with the third-string quarterback. The only loss they had was very early in the season. The Big Ten has a title game, and Ohio State's schedule was much better than Baylor's, and the Big 12 did not have a title game. I think that cost them, and I think you can't put TCU into this. And I like TCU. I love Patterson. I love the coach. I like TCU. TCU lost to Baylor. They lose the head-to-head to Baylor. So to me, it came down to Ohio State and Baylor, with the Big Ten having a title game and Ohio State blowing out Wisconsin, and Baylor playing, I think, the worst schedule in all of college football. What was their non-conference schedule like?
Non-conference schedule was the worst.
Buffalo, SMU, Northwestern State, or something crazy like that.
The non-conference schedule was the worst.
Right.
We'll get to the rest of their schedule in a minute.
Right.
I want to let you finish your thoughts.
Right.
Here.
Now, I do think the Big 12 is probably better than the Big 10. I don't love the Big 10, but taking everything into account, and I also think this, Oklahoma and Texas hurt Baylor's chances this year. If you have your perennial power Texas and Oklahoma like we thought we were going to have, another disappointing year for Bob Stoops, by the way, maybe Baylor can
How
squeeze
often
into...
do we talk about? Are you come in every year,
Yep.
ranked in the preseason top 5, and every year you're out of national title contention
Yep.
by 2/3 or halfway through the season. You lose in Bedlam to an Oklahoma State team
Unbelievable.
that only became bowl eligible on that win. Had a freshman quarterback starting. It was, I believe, his second career start.
I can't remember the last time Oklahoma State...
By the way, Oklahoma had that game won besides.
Right,
And
yeah.
they give up a 90-plus yard
Right.
punt return
I can't
to force overtime.
I can't remember the last time Oklahoma State went into Oklahoma and beat them. I mean, I just can't even remember when it was. When was it?
I don't know offhand. It's been a while.
They haven't won much in that rivalry to begin with.
It's a bad loss for OU.
There's been
It's a terrible loss, and once again, Bob Stoops, despite all the accolades he gets, around the country, I think over the last 5 to 7 years, that program in Norman has been a disappointment because each and every year, preseason top 5, each and every year, they're out of contention for the national title by halfway to 2/3 through the season.
I agree with you totally. So, as I said, I think the committee got it right. And by the way, it doesn't hurt being, as I said, the Ohio State University, and it does not hurt when you have Urban Meyer as your coach.
Absolutely.
Those two things weigh in strongly. I told you this about a month
And
ago.
ESPN, I'm sure, has some influence on say what you want.
Absolutely.
There is a pressure from ESPN who televises this college football playoffs to get us the most compelling matchups that we can get. And you can't tell me that Baylor or TCU are more dynamic college football teams than Ohio State. And when you have a chance to match up Nick Saban versus Urban Meyer, that you're going to pass on that to get Nick Saban versus Art Briles or Gary Patterson.
No, absolutely. And let me also say this, and we're in agreement on this. We think it should be an 18 playoff.
Yes, we do.
Without a doubt.
That solves all these problems because now the teams you're talking about, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're a bunch of 2-loss teams. It's still arbitrary, but at that point, I don't think anybody past 8 is a real threat,
No,
number one. Number two, hey, You lost 2 games. Play
Right.
better. You have no excuse.
I think it would have ended up, according to the last rankings, Michigan State and Mississippi State would have made it, and then you would have had the Ole Miss Mississippi State argument because Ole Miss beat them, but Ole Miss has 3 losses. But we can live with that.
Right.
To me,
That's an argument you could certainly live with much more than Baylor and TCU on the outside looking
so
in.
to me, we're in, as you say, lockstep. 18 playoff is the way to go, and I'm not getting greedy. I don't think we have to have a 16-team playoff.
No.
I also
because it's, number 16 is no threat to number
Right.
1.
I also heard a good idea. I think it was someone in the Big 12 said this. They said, how
They
about
need to go get 2 more teams, get themselves a championship game.
absolutely 2 more teams, or get a waiver and play someone twice, in the championship game or something like that. Get a waiver and have 10 teams and have a playoff, or something in there.
I would have had no problem seeing TCU and Baylor play one more time
At a neutral site.
and make your case.
Absolutely. Someone at the Big 12 said, how about 6 teams, the top 2 have a bye? Not bad.
That's not bad.
Not terrible.
I think sliding it down, I guess what that does is that solves a layer. And I can live with that.
And
I think 4 is not quite enough, somewhere between 6 and 8, because anybody outside of that really doesn't have an argument.
And it's giving you credit for being 1 and 2. You get the bye. So I can live with 6. I'd like 8. Now, so are you in agreement with me that Ohio State should have been the 4th team, or...
No, I like, and you knew this was coming.
I knew it was coming. That's why I'm waiting for you to jump in.
Unfortunately, of those 3 teams, the one I think is the best team
Is TCU.
Is TCU, but you have to eliminate them immediately.
And they blew a 21-point lead in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
Which,
Outside of 10 minutes
Yeah.
of bad football, they're better than Baylor.
and we love...
But it's 10 minutes, and we love Gary
and
Patterson.
we love the program.
Yes.
This is not
No,
anti-TCU.
not at all. But the realities are, when you look at those 2 teams, you both play in the Big 12. All right?
Absolutely.
Now, the Big 12 only has 10 teams, and the Big 10 has 14 teams.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. You figure out the numbers. But
Exactly.
that notwithstanding, in the Big 12, everybody plays everybody. So they played the identical in-conference schedule.
Agreed.
Non-conference schedule, TCU didn't really play. Their best win was Minnesota. It's the only team they played in non-conference. Baylor didn't play anybody.
Right.
They actually had the worst non-conference schedule
Of anyone.
in all of college football.
That's saying something.
Now, you roll it forward. So TCU you have to eliminate based on neither team's playing a great non-conference
Right.
schedule. Small edge to TCU.
But
They
Baylor-
played the same teams in conference. Baylor beats them head up. How do you put TCU ahead? You can't.
So-
So you eliminate TCU. Now it's 5 into 4. Now you say, okay, right team gets in because of how impressive Ohio State was over Wisconsin. And to me, they make a great case there. But unlike you, I hate the Big Ten.
You do
It's
hate
not
the
a.
Big
It's
Ten.
not a hate from. I don't like a. I don't think the conference is very good. Now, I think the Big 12 as a conference is a much better conference. And when you take the Big 12 and who Baylor had to play in conference, and you make their schedule complete despite playing nobody in their non-conference, they end up playing some damn good teams, better teams than the Big Ten, than Ohio State played in the Big Ten. Ohio State had what ended up being a couple of pretty decent wins.
Michigan State.
Michigan State, Wisconsin. I don't know that Minnesota's a big win.
No.
So say 2. In the Big 12, you're Baylor, you beat TCU, you beat Kansas State, you beat Oklahoma when they were ranked. It's a deep conference. You also have teams in that mid-level, like West Virginia.
Right, yeah.
You can't really take Oklahoma State because they made it to a bowl, but teams like West Virginia and Texas Tech and other teams in
Now,
that conference.
let me jump in.
It's a deeper conference where in the Big Ten, it's Indiana, it's Illinois,
Well,
it's Purdue. It's a conference that was losing to Mid-America Conference teams in their
A
non-conference
couple
schedule.
of people will say, well, hold on. You got Nebraska in there. You got Iowa. You got a lot of teams that made
Yeah, but they didn't play them.
You got a lot of teams in
Ohio
bowl
State
games.
didn't play any of those
You
teams.
talk about the whole Big Ten as a whole. They say
Everybody makes a bowl. You now got teams 6 and 7 because of championship games that make a goal. Just ask ask Fresno State.
Oh,
They're
yes.
one game under 500. They got to waive it on a bowl.
And how about this though? Ohio State did play one more game. That's like in the NFL, one team plays 16 games, another team plays 15 games.
I think you can make that case, and their compelling win in the championship game with a third-string quarterback and Cordell Jones makes a great statement for Ohio State. They're peaking at the right time and all those things, and it's a great case. And the margin between those two teams, I feel, shrunk significantly as the back third of the season moved forward. But at the end of the day, I like the total resume of Baylor just a hair better.
And how about this, though?
I can't put up as big an argument as I could have 6 weeks ago.
Right.
Because who was it that said a one-loss Big Ten team has to be disqualified from this discussion?
Right.
It was me.
It was you.
Well, clearly they weren't. And the truth of the matter is, when you really look at the total resumes, Baylor and Ohio State are very, very close. I would have chosen Baylor because of my affinity for the Big 12 as a conference and for my lack of affinity of the Big 10. But in reality, I think when you put those resumes up together in total, they're very, very, very close. You really can't go wrong choosing either, but I would have chosen Baylor.
How about the committee sending a message saying, hey, you better get a Big 12 title game?
Yeah, you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to bring in Central Florida and BYU.
Right, a couple teams.
Well, who are you going to get? You're going to get Central Florida. You're going to get BYU.
Yeah.
And you better make sure you do everything you can to protect Texas.
Right, exactly.
Because there's a threat all the time. You know, because what's going to happen is maybe if the Big 12 starts moving some deck chairs around, see, they need to do it. But you know why they haven't done it yet?
Well, first,
they're afraid of waking up the SEC.
Right. And
Because if the SEC gets a bug up its butt, they're going to go get Texas.
Right, and another thing...
And then Texas will take some... Because Texas needs a playmate. So they'll take somebody with them. If it's Baylor, it's the end of the Big 12, as you know.
The Big 12 was a hair away from going to the Pac-12 and combining the conferences a couple years ago. That looked like it was going to happen.
Featured ends. It was going to be Texas and
Right.
Oklahoma.
And then Texas...
And then you could kill the Big 12 because then it's not relevant.
Texas had that thing with the Longhorn Network. They decided...
Which is the only thing that may keep them from moving to the SEC, which has a network of its own. But, you know, honestly, the Big 12 has to make a move. But if they make a move, they risk waking up the SEC. And if they wake up the SEC is going to want Texas.
Right.
And then the Big 12 goes out of business, much like the old Big East.
And I'll tell you what, the Big 12 commissioner didn't do a great job either with the whole co-champion thing and all that kind of thing. And he didn't come off good at all.
Show up in one place with one trophy,
Right.
Pick a champion. The fact that your conference doesn't have a champion, you know, all the other conferences have a champion. One of the things the committee came out and said is, you know, what's one of our big factors? Conference champions.
I knew.
Well, your conference doesn't have a champion.
And
you didn't do yourself a favor.
And I told you this the last time you were here. I said, don't discount Ohio State with one loss, especially if they run the table and they win the Big Ten title while the Big 12 does not have a title game. I said the committee is going to...
I didn't buy into it based on what I was staring at, but the realities are, one of the things we talked about throughout the season, if you give it time, a lot of times everything sorts itself out. Mississippi State losing a second game.
Yeah.
Ole Miss getting decimated by injuries, becoming a 3-loss team,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kansas State, et cetera. So all of a sudden, everything sorts itself out, and you really have 6 going into 4. Obviously, any intelligent college football fan and somebody that's working in this business and in this game realizes that as much as you'd like to, you can't leapfrog TCU over Baylor because of the head-to-head. So then it's 5 going into 4. Now you got to pick apart the resumes. I personally like Baylor's resume a little bit better. Most people like Ohio State's resume better. I can't argue it. I think they're very close.
I do. See, the determining factor to me, if I was on the committee, goes back to what I've been preaching about. The Big 12 does not have a title game. They play one less game.
It's true. But Baylor also did this to themselves by not scheduling anybody.
And throw that on
maybe
top.
had they scheduled even, say, a Minnesota like TCU did, or somebody. Have somebody. You've got to. I think if you're in a, now you got to think about this. If you're a big time team and you want to go to this playoff, in your non-conference, no matter how tough your schedule is, schedule one good Power 5 conference team. And in the case of the Big 12, you don't have a championship game and everything else, schedule one top 10 power conference team. Be smart.
I like that. I like when big teams play each other early in the season. If you would have put Baylor in,
Get you out of the sun in August,
you're
right?
sending a message like, don't have a title game, don't play anyone out of your conference, just take care of business with the games you play, and that's it. I mean,
much as I thought Art Briles and Baylor deserved to be in, they did this to themselves. They have nobody to blame but themselves.
And they just didn't have a bad conference schedule. It was the worst in college football.
Exactly right.
I
So,
mean,
you did it to yourself. The Baylor Bears have nobody to blame but the Baylor Bears. And I'm not even talking about it from a player's standpoint or fan standpoint. This is Art Briles. This is his athletic director.
we love Art Briles.
We do.
We love him.
But
We
this
love
is
the-
your athletic director. Schedule somebody. Go find somebody to play. I'm sure Boise State would play you. They'll play everybody.
And go get 2 more teams and get a title game, or get a waiver and play a title game with
Who do
10.
you see them bringing in? I've heard Central Florida because you get a big market down in South Florida, and it's a good program. And I heard BYU.
I heard BYU because they're an independent right now. I heard Central Florida as well. I heard a couple other ones. Just because they're in the same neck of the woods. I heard Texas San Antonio. I heard.
Yeah, but that doesn't fix anything.
I heard
you need to bring in strong teams.
Right. I heard UTEP. That's another bad team. I mean,
the other area is if you want go cannibalize the Mountain West, grab Boise State. It's the same market. It's the same kind of market as BYU. It's the only problem when you grab Mountain Time Zone teams, like BYU and Utah, Boise State, and Idaho. They don't bring eyes to television sets.
Right, exactly.
Because there's nobody in that corridor of the country.
Right.
But if I'm going to go bring in BYU because they're an independent, and they have their network, and they have some things going for them, personally, from a talent standpoint, what they can offer competitively, I'd go for Boise State.
I agree with you. I think Boise State would fit.
Boise State, Central, some combination of Boise State, BYU, and Central Florida makes sense.
And here's another thing. You're the Notre Dame guy. Notre Dame is not going to the Big 12. Notre Dame, if they went anywhere, would be the Big 10. If they went to any conference, they are not going to the Big 12, Notre Dame.
Now, the tricky part with that is they have that quasi-working relationship with the ACC.
With the basketball and everything else.
But that's easy.
Right.
All you do is, if you're willing to bring football into the equation, which I think ultimately they'll have to at some point,
right.
They'll go to the Big Ten. Big Ten will open their arms to them. And the Big Ten doesn't want they didn't want to include Notre Dame without football. If you bring us football, you can come. Otherwise, go play in the ACC.
And that's where the big money for Notre Dame would be, in the Big Ten, I think. It wouldn't be in the Big.
You know what the problem and why Notre Dame doesn't? They don't want to share anything.
Right, exactly.
They make more money than every program but Texas. But realize Texas has actually become the biggest program.
But if they
don't share either.
If they were to go into a conference and they had to share money, they'd make the most money, I think, in the Big Ten.
Yeah, they'd make some sort of arrangement because they would have. I don't know how they would continue to have their own network. I don't. They would probably do something akin to what Texas did with the Big 12.
Right.
But right now, as long as college football continues to make special arrangement with Notre Dame, which basically here's our arrangement. You are the 6th conference.
Right.
So, and basically, as long as that's the case, Notre Dame will stay an independent. Once they take away Notre Dame's preferential treatment, at that point, they'll go seek out the Big Ten, and they'll work out the dollars and cents.
Absolutely. So, you would have picked Baylor over Ohio State.
And I'm in the minority, I know that.
I can live with that. I would have taken Ohio State for the reasons I just said, but I wouldn't kill you on the Baylor suggestion. I think we both agree you can't take TCU.
No,
you
just
can't do it.
Even though of those 3 teams, I personally think they're the best.
Exactly.
But 10 minutes of bad football,
right,
disqualify. That's all part of the resume.
Yeah.
Everything goes into this. How you playing down the stretch, eye test, health, everything.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I played you, I beat you. Me and you played. Everybody else we played was basically identical, save Minnesota instead of some other crappy team in your non-conference schedule. Well, that's not enough for you to pass me. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
I agree, and we also agree it should be the Final 8. We definitely agree.
Definitely Final 8. I'll tell you what you have gotten, though. A lot of years, some of these bowls are awful. And this year, you're going to have a bunch again.
And I'm going to reel them off in a second.
Even what you'll notice when you start to get to the back of your list, the traditional big-time bowl games that over the last 10 years, in the as we've gotten to the BCS and the +1 formula. Those games stunk, and me and you were the only two people that watched.
Right, exactly.
This year, some of those traditional matchups, they're pretty damn. Those traditional power bowls have some pretty damn good matchups. Number one, number two, changing the times. Pretty interesting. If you're mature enough that you don't need to go out and get all liquored up on New Year's Eve, you got some football worth watching, man.
Right, and they tried to get some big games back on New Year's Day. They're trying to recapture New Year's Day,
which they did lose to the NHL in its Winter Classic. I mean, were you with me? The last 5 New Year's Days. You want to talk about something that had no stroke?
Absolutely.
I mean, it had nothing.
Nothing.
And you couldn't find two people more passionate about college football than Mike and I. And I could barely get through some of those New Year's Day, man. I'm like, well, this has nothing for me. I don't like these matchups. This has no juice. I said, I'm going to, I ended up watching the Winter Classic one year, and I'm not a hockey guy.
Absolutely. And I also think with the Final Four this year, I may tolerate some of the bad games more because I have something to look forward to now with the Final Four.
No, some of these bad ones I'm not going to tolerate.
All right.
Get into some of these classics.
Let's go through the bowl list real quick. We're not going to pick the games. We're going to save that.
Save that.
I want to see.
Because I know what's going to happen by the time push comes to shove. A lot of these games, you're just like, I'm not picking because nobody cares.
I want to see if you like these games, though.
All right.
By the way, including the Final Four, there are 39 bowl games. 39.
40, 80, 78. There's less than 120 football bowl subdivision teams.
1/3.
So actually 2/3 are going to make a bowl.
Right.
And if you can win 6 games and have a losing record, they'll give you a waiver if your conference has a championship game. You'll get in.
Right. Fresno State 6 and 7. They didn't invite poor UAB, who closed their program. They didn't get in.
That's why they didn't get invited, because they closed their program.
All right. Let's quickly go through all these games.
Fire one ready, man.
I want to hear your opinion on these games. By the way, what's with these wacky names of the bowls? By the way,
it's all sponsorship, man.
It used to just be the Rose Bowl and the Orange.
Well, then they
Bowl.
got sponsorship.
Right.
A lot of these bowls are actually now just. If you remember when sponsorship first came in, it would be. Remember, it was the Independence Bowl. Then it became the Pool and Weed Eater Independence Bowl.
The Weed Eater.
Now it's just the sponsors are the name of the bowl.
Absolutely.
Like you're going to start with the R&L Carriers Bowl. I think they're a moving company.
Let's kick it off. December 20th. By the way, Army-Navy is this week, but we're not
great pageantry. Right. Not much of a football game. No. Navy is significantly better. Navy's going to a bowl. They're a solid team who has a tough offense to deal with. It's a lot easier to deal with in a bowl game because you got a month to prepare.
Right, and Navy.
There's your Army-Navy preview.
Navy always beats Army later.
Yes.
All right, December 20th. As you said, the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl.
R&L Carriers is a moving company.
Right.
They move stuff.
Nevada against Louisiana Lafayette.
Not watching. Sorry.
The only thing I can say about that game is Louisiana Lafayette has been in this game before. They will bring a contingent of fans with them. I will say that.
A couple of dozen.
Other than that, I have nothing to say.
It's not worth watching.
The Gildan, New Mexico Bowl, UTEP, who I just mentioned, against Utah State. I didn't realize UTEP went 7-5 this year. What was their schedule like? I mean,
they're not something that's going to change the balance of power within a conference.
I take it you won't be watching the New Mexico Bowl.
I like Utah State a little bit as a program, but this game holds little intrigue with some of the great college basketball matchups that we're going to see in non-conference and everything else.
This is not a must-watch.
No.
I am Xing off the first 2 for you.
Perfect.
Okay, same day. The Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl.
I don't know what Royal Purple is.
Right. Utah against Colorado State, who just lost their coach to Florida, by the way.
This matchup, if it was in a different bowl, I'd like. Utah's a pretty good team. They represented well out of the Pac-12. And Colorado State was one of the best non-Power 5 conference teams in all of football.
Do I sense a thumbs up?
Yeah, I'd watch this game.
And
as a matter of fact, I will watch it.
I'm giving you a thumbs up. I will remain with an X there for me, but I'm being picky here.
You are being fussy.
The famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Western Michigan and Air Force. I'm sorry, that's an X for me. I don't
That's
like that.
a double X for me.
I cannot.
And any Mid-America Conference, I'm not watching a Mid-America Conference team in a bowl game.
Very tough watch. Okay, this is on, believe it or not, the same day. You have how many? 5 games on December 20th, by the way.
By the way, this next one you want to talk about a tough watch. You ain't seen nothing yet.
The Raycom Media Bowl, Bowling Green and South Alabama. Now, I don't know if you can read my writing.
I can.
Where is the Raycom Media Bowl? Did you know before you saw my writing?
I have no friggin' idea.
I had to look it up. It's in Montgomery, Alabama. So I guess South Alabama will have a contingent of fans there.
Yeah,
But
they'll travel. It's close.
Bowling Green, South Alabama could be the worst matchup of the bowl
Yes,
season.
no question about it.
Double X there.
Triple X.
All right, December 22nd, the Miami Beach Bowl, another comical name. BYU, who had a disappointing year, they thought they were going to go undefeated, lose their quarterback.
Right.
Memphis is a nice story. They are a nice story for Memphis.
Worst 9-3 team I've ever seen.
But for Memphis, 9-3,
Right.
they're usually 3-9.
I had no interest.
A very strange seeing Miami Miami host BYU. I mean, BYU coming down to Miami. Very odd place for them to put BYU.
Yeah. I don't have an interest in this one. I got to take a pass.
I am doing a double X there. We both don't love that game. So far, I have not liked any game.
I liked one.
You like Utah, Colorado
I
State.
do.
And that one's still up for debate, by the way. All right, December 23, the Boca Raton Bowl. Marshall against Northern Illinois. Marshall lost their perfect season at the end of the year when they lost on the 2-point conversion in overtime. Northern Illinois always has a good program, but they just don't do it for me. I'm used to seeing them on like a Tuesday night. I just...
Right, if you got nothing else to do on Tuesday night, you'll put... Let me say this. Small check mark.
Oh, it's a baby
You know
check.
why? Raheem Cato.
Right, okay, but still, Marshall and Northern Illinois, that's a
No,
tough-
the matchup itself does
And-
nothing for. But for those of you around the country that haven't had a chance to see the best quarterback nobody's heard of,
Very
it's
good.
Raheem Cato. Watch the game. Will I be watching it honestly? No. I've seen him already.
Right, I would have put a check next to it if Marshall was undefeated. When they
Okay.
lost, it kind of lost all intrigue to me. The San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. Do you think you have enough names in
No,
that
I
game?
need a couple of more names.
San Diego State, who will be playing right at home, against Navy.
Well, this is why you have San Diego State in this game.
That's an X for me.
You put a contingent in there, and now Qualcomm Stadium's only half empty.
Right, I mean, to me,
That's an X.
that's a tough sell. All
I'm not
right,
watching that.
December 24th, the Christmas Eve, by the way.
Yeah, but everybody that celebrates Christmas, and if you're, there are a lot of people who Christmas Eve, the fish, the Italians like myself. Football is a tough sell unless you got a great game.
All right, we got 2 Christmas Eve games for you. As you will be preparing Christmas Eve dinner with your chef's hat on.
Yes, exactly right. Boy, you know me too well.
Exactly. The Popeyes Bahamas Bowl.
Is this actually in the Bahamas?
I believe it is. This is a new bowl where they are
They're not at a football stadium in the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas, I guess. I have to double check. I thought they were playing in the Bahamas, but you're right. I didn't know there was a football stadium there. Maybe they're playing in a soccer stadium or something.
I don't know. What do you got for me? Who's in this stellar matchup?
Western Kentucky against Central Michigan. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a triple X.
That's
a triple X.
That's one of those. That's the second worst matchup you've given me so
other
far.
than they're playing in the Bahamas, unless you're going and you want to catch some
I
rays.
think the teams will be catching rays instead of showing up for the game.
Triple X for that one, and of course, every Christmas Eve,
The Hawaii Bowl.
the Hawaii Bowl, where we have
Which used to be intriguing when Hawaii was good because they basically
Right.
hosted and they bring somebody in that was a big name team that had a
Right.
down year, and you might get a game.
Fresno State, who's 6-7, doesn't even have a winning record, against the Rice Owls. Yes, the Rice Owls made a bowl as well. That to me.
This is a better Rice Owls team than in years past, but I'm not watching this.
Now, some people may say
In a poker game.
I'm being picky
No.
here.
No.
I have X'd out everyone. And you know what? I'll take a peek.
I mean, how many have I said? One and a small one because I think Raheem Cato's an interesting watch for those that haven't seen him.
All right. Friday, December 26th. The Zaxby's Heart of Dallas Bowl. Louisiana Tech. I believe, is that Skip Holtz's
Yes, it
team?
is.
It is.
Yes.
Lou Holtz's son coaches
Yes.
that team. Against
And Terry Bradshaw's alma mater.
against Illinois, who's 6-6.
Wow.
Another reason why Ohio State made the Final Four. Illinois made a bowl game.
Wow, that is
A rough one.
That is as
If you would have told me Illinois won 6 games this year, I would have said you're out of your mind. I
Right.
thought they won 3 this year.
No, that was Indiana, I think.
Double X for me.
Absolutely, I'm in accord with you.
The Quick Lane Bowl, and I'm going to quiz you on where the Quick Lane Bowl is. Where is that?
I never even heard of it.
I didn't know
It's a
either.
new one this year.
New
that's why.
one in Detroit, Ford Field.
What's Quick Lane?
I have no idea, but here we go. Local Rutgers against North Carolina, who was 6-6 and got pasted by NC State at the end of the year. I didn't realize
No.
Rutgers even had 7 wins this year. Every time I
No.
watched them, they got blown out.
What I can decisively say, no.
Another double X. You see what we're getting at here? A lot of X's here.
Maybe it gets good on the next, well, not the next page. You got a few pieces of paper.
The-
We got a lot of ground to cover.
Bitcoin St. Petersburg Bowl.
Now, I actually know what a Bitcoin is.
So there you go. And this, I guess, is where the Tampa Bay Rays
This is
play?
good. This is yes.
Okay.
This is allegedly going to be the new currency of the future, the Bitcoin. That's what a Bitcoin is.
So you get extra credit for that. This is over in Tampa where the Tampa Bay Rays play, I believe. Central Florida, who will bring their contingent of fans over, who you want in the Big 12, will be playing 6-6 NC State. And by the way, there's a lot of 6-6 teams in a bowl.
Yes.
NC State against Central Florida, I mean, to me, it's average
Why
at
they
best.
want Central Florida in the Big 12? It's not. This game is not interesting enough to make me watch.
I agree. Double X again for me. December 27th, the Military Bowl presented by Northrop Grumman. I
Which is
believe-
appropriate for here.
right, exactly.
Grumman used to have major headquarters here on Long Island. I
Right.
don't know where they are now.
So we have Cincinnati against Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech, oh by the way, another 6-6 team who lost to Wake Forest this year. That says it all.
I think you said it all.
when you lose to Wake Forest, X we go. The Hyundai Sun Bowl. Now the Sun Bowl, you know, you're used to the Sun Bowl on CBS with is that Vern Lundquist usually does that.
Vern
game?
Lundquist will probably do
and
that.
Gary
game, yeah.
Danielson
Yes.
in that group. You might like this game because you like high-scoring affairs. Arizona State, who you know, how
I know you
know
don't
how I
like
feel
that.
about them, how soft they are, and how they melt in a big spot. And again, they did it. Arizona plastered them at the end of the year among a couple other teams. Against Duke, who's another, I like the story, but they're another soft defensive team. This game should be about 70-63.
You know, I actually like this game because
You
Duke always shows up for a bowl game because any bowl game they make, to them it's like Christmas.
Right,
Remember last year in the Peach Bowl or the Chick-fil-A Bowl?
right. I knew what you meant. Yeah.
Against Texas A&M, where Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans were the only two that showed up for Texas A&M for the entire first half, and Duke almost won the game.
Right.
Well, expect Duke to show up. Cutcliffe is a hell of a coach
We
there.
love him.
Arizona State, you may not love them, but they're a pretty good team. This is one. This is worth watching. to me.
I will
like
give this
game.
a baby check because I like the Duke coach. I like what they've done. This is a basketball school. They're now starting to put something together in football. They're redoing their stadium. As much as I detest Arizona State and their style of play, and they are so soft in a big
But
spot.
you could say that this is a game worth paying attention.
And it's going to be a 70-63 game, so you're going to get a lot of points.
Right.
I'll live with that one. The Duck Commander Independence Bowl. Let me say it again. The Duck Commander Independence Bowl.
Well, it's apropos Shreveport, Louisiana. So.
2 6-6 teams. South Carolina, who had a very disappointing year, and Miami, who was one of those teams that should have beat Florida State and found a way to lose.
I won't watch this game, but I'll always have a soft spot for the Independence Bowl going back 30-odd years ago.
A lot of
it
tradition.
is a traditional bowl. It used to be the bowl that kicked off bowl season
Right.
between a 6-5 and 7-4 type team, but it does have a storied history and tradition of its own.
Small
This
check.
right.
Small
This
check.
matchup isn't enough to necessarily make me watch, but I'll give it a small check just
I
for the
am
tradition.
still going with an X. I am down on South Carolina this year.
I'm a big softie.
Clemson bombed them with, a quarterback that's playing on one leg.
Yep.
I didn't like South Carolina this year. As much as I like Al Golden, they still only finished 6-6 Miami.
Like I said, I may not watch it, but I'll
Right.
take a look just because of the tradition. I have a soft spot for that bowl.
The new era Pinstripe Bowl, that's right over here at Yankee Stadium. You've been to this bowl game?
Yes, I
think?
have. I went there when Notre Dame played in it last year.
Two kind of local teams, BC, who doesn't have far to go, and Penn State, who's about 4 hours away, somewhat local. Not
The matchup stinks.
right. So to me,
It's two mediocre teams.
you might get some, the fans may travel to this game, you may get a nice crowd, but to me, it's not a great matchup at all. And I know you love the Penn State quarterback, he's regressed.
Yes,
He has.
I love Christian Hackenberg, but he has stepped back a little bit.
The National University Holiday Bowl,
Another one of these bowls that I've always liked.
and it's usually
The holiday,
very exciting.
It's usually an exciting, compelling matchup, and that goes back all the way to the days when BYU would win the WAC and would represent in the Holiday Bowl. And one year they won a national title, being undefeated and beating a 4-loss
usually
Michigan team in
always
the
have
Holiday
some
Bowl.
crazy ending in the Holiday Bowl.
Lately
as well.
now it's usually big conference teams. It's Big Ten, Pac-12, and it's always a high-flying game.
Now, when I give you the names of the schools here, it's kind of going to be smoke and mirrors. You got two historic programs here, but they've kind of had disappointing seasons. USC, to me, is a disappointing 8-4. I thought they'd be better
The
than that.
quarterback as good as their quarterback? Yes.
And Nebraska is 9-3, but they just
coach.
fired their coach because they can't win any big games. They'll take care of the little guys for you, but they can't win any big games, Nebraska.
They may have a surprise coming as far as where that program is. It's not the Big 8 anymore.
I don't hate the game. I'll give it a little check just because of the historic teams we're dealing with here.
I'll give you the same little check.
Right, but I'm not overly enthusiastic about it. December 29th, here's another one of your traditional bowl games, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. You have Texas A&M, who you love more than me, you love the coach more than me, against West Virginia, whose quarterback right now may or may not play. Texas A&M's quarterback is already out of this game, I believe. I think he's already out of this
Well,
game.
you kind of answered it for me. If Clint Trickett's not going to play for West Virginia, I have no reason to watch a pair of 7-5 teams.
And
sorry.
can Texas A&M? I know they're getting a new defensive coordinator. Can they play some sort of defense next year, please? Can they stop Alabama once?
If they don't play defense next year, boy, am I going to feel stupid as I keep jumping on the Kevin Sumlin bandwagon.
Let me tell you about Sumlin. This is not Houston where you can get away with that. This is the SEC. You got to play a little bit of defense. But I won't pick on you for that yet.
Thank you.
The Russell Athletic Bowl. This is a game you might like. Clemson and Oklahoma, but once again, is a disappointing Oklahoma team. Clemson, I think the quarterback will play Watson, although he has the torn ACL. They're saying he will play. I like what Clemson does. I like the coach, but I'm so down on Oklahoma. This is another one of those, kind of like USC Nebraska.
It's a decent game, but here's the truth of the matter. If there's something more compelling on, whether it be an NBA game, a college basketball game, or something else, I'll click right by this because if this were a matchup on any given Saturday in the middle of the regular season, I could find 5 or 6 other games better. So I'll take a pass.
Baby check for
That's
me.
about right.
The Advocare V100 Texas Bowl. Once again, one of these crazy names. We have two old, I believe,
Southwest Conference rivals.
Arkansas against Texas. Now, I believe this game is in Houston, so there should be, both fan bases should be well represented. Texas will have a huge crowd. Arkansas travels well. But once again, you have two 6-6 teams. And I know Arkansas is coming. They're going to be a lot better. You saw that at the end of the year.
Making a bowl is big for them. You know why?
Right.
They got an extra 3 weeks of practice.
Right, and they're
a young team.
They came on at the end of the year.
A lot of people coming back. They got a defense. They got 2 running backs. I think their quarterback's pretty good. Texas's defense came on at the back end of the year. Offensively, they can't get out of their own way.
I'm going to give it a baby check for me because I like the old Southwest Conference
I'm kind of
matchup,
with you.
and I think there's going to be a big crowd
But again,
there.
Mike,
No.
would this be something, if something came up and you couldn't watch, would you be heartbroken?
If me and you, the fanatics, are giving it a baby check, your general fan is not watching
Nobody's
this game.
right. 13 people are watching. We're 2 of them.
Outside of Austin and Fayetteville.
And if something comes up for me,
yeah.
I'll dust it.
By the way, look how many bowls we're going through. December 30th, the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl.
This bowl I know. It's been around a while.
And here you go. Your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who after the Florida State game completely checked out of the season.
Yeah.
Against LSU, who for them had a very disappointing year. They can't.
They don't have a quarterback.
They don't have a quarterback. Can't score. I mean,
but they can play defense.
They always can play defense. I mean, again, you have two traditional powers here. You like the names of the teams, but do you like?
I don't like the teams.
Right.
I'm a Notre Dame fan, so
Right.
I'm forced to watch this.
Right.
But if you're just some guy looking to watch college football, no. I think the matchup stinks.
Especially since Notre Dame really tailed off the Indiana.
Yeah.
USC blew
They're
them
a
out.
hard watch.
Yeah, they just once that Florida State they made that call on the offensive.
They're a
pass
hard
defense,
watch.
That
right
was
now.
they were done.
And LSU's a hard watch just because they can't score. Their defense came on the back 2/3 of the season.
well,
but they're,
you know, Miles, he wants to run it 3 downs and punt and play defense.
There you go.
The Belk Bowl. This is Georgia against Louisville, and Georgia's another one of the teams on my list of disappointing.
I know.
They play in the SEC East, and they let a bad Missouri team get to the title game. I mean, are you?
That's
kidding me?
another. That's a discussion for
Are
another.
you kidding
People
me?
talk about, well, Missouri's an SEC team.
Oh.
Yeah, they play in the East, which is incredibly weak. Number one, number two, they didn't play anybody
They
in the SEC.
didn't play.
No, they didn't
anybody.
play Alabama. They didn't play Mississippi State. They didn't play Ole Miss. I don't know who'd they play out of the West. Vanderbilt.
And they lost to Indiana at home. They got shut out by Georgia and Georgia. Are you kidding me?
You got to win that East, which is another reason why I think the SEC is going to look to expand.
Right.
Because if you bring in 2 more teams, you could shuffle Auburn and Alabama over to the East, and you'll have a conference in the. Because the West is so good, the East is so bad.
So I don't love this game. Louisville, I mean, they're okay, but
I like their quarterback.
Right.
Am I watching? Still not
I'll
watching.
give you a baby check,
right.
maybe.
Because I'm a big softy.
Right, the Forster Farms Bowl.
No, this one I can read your writing.
Stanford and Maryland, and you love the Maryland coach. You
I
like
do,
him.
but I didn't know they won 7 games.
First of
Talk
all,
about a team that I didn't know won any games. I didn't know they won 7
where
games.
did you come up with this matchup? Maryland and Stanford, they just don't fit together. I just don't see it.
And Stanford's a bad watch this year because of the mistakes. Absolutely not.
Double X for me there as well. December 31, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, as you would call it. That would be
The old Peach Bowl.
The old Peach Bowl. You have, now I think you're going to like this game, TCU against Ole Miss. Now, everyone,
You don't like this game.
everyone on ESPN went nuts over this game, and here's why I don't like it. I know Ole Miss beat Mississippi State, but Mississippi State was really running on fumes at the end of the year. I don't know what you're going to get from Ole Miss here. They lost their best receiver. They kind of, other than the Mississippi State game, they didn't play well down the stretch.
No, they did not.
I don't love this game from that aspect, and I think Mississippi State.
TCU's going to roll over. I know the number's only a -3. TCU will roll over them.
Right.
But I do like this matchup, and certainly, on New Year's Eve, unless it gets crazy, this will be something on in the background. Because the couples are all going to be getting together, the guys will be smoking cigars and eating, the girls will be bitching and moaning.
Right.
And
So you
having fun.
like this?
Yeah, I do like this.
All right, everyone on ESPN liked this game. I'm in the minority on that, but just because I saw the way Ole Miss
You don't
played,
like any of these games.
I'm going to watch them all, but I'm down on a lot.
Well, that's a
of them.
problem. You'll watch them
I'll
all.
watch them
The
all.
ones that I said I don't like,
I'll be
I'm
wa-
not gonna
See,
watch.
I say I don't like them, and I'll be watching them.
The ones that I don't like, I won't watch.
Exactly.
I'll watch a college basketball game, an NBA game, something.
You're watching New York Knickerbockers lose their 15th
I
straight
don't
game.
like them either.
The Vizio Fiesta Bowl, Arizona, who just got bombed by Oregon. I was so disappointed in that performance. And Boise State, who seems to always be in the Fiesta Bowl. I mean,
On paper, matchup looks good. This is not
No.
this is not a vintage Boise State team.
No, and
they made their hay in their conference schedule, and Mount West is way down. Arizona will roll all over them, despite that small number.
right. I don't.
Especially if Anu Solomon is under center. I know he got banged up in the in the
He'll have a
Pac-12
month to
championship
get better.
game.
So I don't love that game either. The Capital One Orange Bowl, you got Mississippi State,
I like this one.
who really tailed off at the end against Georgia Tech, and you love that offense they run there. See, to me,
Problem is, with a month to prepare for it
Right.
defensively, it mitigates a lot of Georgia Tech's advantages, and that could really show here.
and I didn't like the way Mississippi State closed
They didn't
the
finish
season.
well, but
At
they're
all.
going to get basically a month off. Dan Mullen's a hell of a football coach. They've got a lot of talent. I'm in love with Dak Prescott. I like this game.
Okay.
I think Mississippi State's going to control it for a couple of reasons I talked about.
Okay, so that's a thumbs up for you on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We've hit January 1st, believe it or not.
Hey!
We finally got there. The Outback Bowl, which is a traditional game in Tampa. I believe John Gruden always does that game with the
Yes.
Monday Night Football crew. We have two teams that I don't know what to make of the way they ended the year. Auburn and Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, who had won like 9 in a row.
I mean, I'm shocked. They came into that game as a 4-point favorite because Ohio State was on their third quarterback, a highly touted freshman.
Yeah, Wisconsin
but
had
their
won like
third
9 in a
quarterback.
row, won like 9 straight games, and they were scoring like 30, 40, 50
That
points a
game was over
First quarter. Oh,
quickly
right.
and decisively. How they rebound, I don't know. And Auburn, honestly,
Oh,
they can't tackle anybody.
Their defense is atrocious, and I know you love the coach, and I like him too.
I love Gus Malzahn,
Yeah,
but
he's
they don't tackle anybody.
He's an offensive genius, but you got to do it on the other side of the ball. Their defense was horrendous. They could have won that Alabama game with some better tackling, at least some better defense.
They always give Alabama trouble.
Oh my goodness! So this game, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of points. I'll tell you that. Wisconsin's gonna run all over Auburn.
It's a nice matchup.
I'll live with that game. I'll live with that.
The
game.
one I like better is the one below it. That's the one I'm going to watch.
The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic from Jerry Jones Stadium.
You know what's nice? It's nice to see the Cotton Bowl back.
Right.
The Cotton Bowl, when the BCS system came, really got short shrift at the expense of the Fiesta Bowl.
Right.
Now, the Cotton Bowl's back in rotation, and they get a great matchup this year.
Baylor against Michigan State. Now,
Offense
I am
versus
giving this a
defense.
big
I like
check.
it. So you and me both could be watching this one,
Baylor,
but really
Michigan,
watch it.
Baylor, Michigan State has to be a must-watch. You got
Absolutely.
2 teams in the top 10 that were just left out of the Final Four. They're kind of on that second tier. You want to see how Baylor plays after being, what they think is a snub.
Absolutely.
You want to see if Michigan State can beat a big-time team because they played Oregon and Ohio State lost. Can they do it here? I like the game. 2 contrasting styles.
Absolutely, I love this game.
Right.
This is one on new, and these 2 games are on probably around the same time.
Probably,
on different
yeah.
networks.
Right, probably.
So I'm watching
2
the Cotton
TV.
Bowl.
That's a 2 TV there.
Well, 2 TVers. Easy.
So way thumbs up there.
Oh yeah.
The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl from Orlando, which when I looked at these 2 teams that were playing the Citrus Bowl, I said, these 2 teams are in the Citrus Bowl. Very odd that Missouri and Minnesota...
It's a peculiar matchup.
Because usually they have... I know Missouri's in the SEC, but usually they have a real Deep South team in the Citrus Bowl, like an Auburn or a Georgia or something like that. You got Minnesota from the Big Ten, and then you got Missouri, who...
Well, we're going to see how bad Missouri is.
Yeah.
Offensively, I'm not a fan of Matty Mark. I like the running back Hansborough.
Right.
I think they're a soft team, but I don't think they're a great team. Minnesota, Jerry Kill does a great job there.
Yes.
You're going to see their physicality. Their running back's going to play on Sundays. Take a look. It's not a great matchup, but I'll watch it.
You'll give it a small check.
Yeah, small check.
January 2nd, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Pittsburgh and Houston, no. It's an automatic
You
X.
didn't even go to the next one.
I'm sorry. The Tax Slayer Bowl, which used to be the Gator Bowl to me, I believe. This is in Jacksonville.
It's Jackson.
Right.
That's the Gator Bowl.
Tennessee, who's 6-6, against
Wow,
Iowa.
has this bowl fall? This
Yeah.
used to be a bowl that always had perennial powers. They were usually 8-3, 9-2.
Right.
I know people expected some big things from Iowa this year. They disappointed a little bit.
7-5, disappointing.
Tennessee's on the come. They're
What?
not there yet. Certainly not good enough for me to watch this.
No, so X to the, as I would call it, the Gator Bowl. The Valero Alamo Bowl, you have very disappointing UCLA. I couldn't believe they are so up and down. I mean, I just cannot believe their
It
performance.
was lost to Memphis.
I just don't get them against Kansas State. We love Bill Snyder.
You know why I like that? Bill Snyder and Kansas State go to the Alamo Bowl a lot because it's had a Big 12.
You know you're going to get an
effort
effort from them, that's for sure.
Hopefully UCLA.
What are you going
shows
to
up.
get from UCLA? I will
only
give
thing-
this a maybe check,
Yes.
depending on what UCLA team.
Exactly.
The Ticket City Cactus Bowl. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Washington against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State made a bowl game despite losing for basically 2 months straight.
Yes.
They beat Oklahoma. You're in a bowl game. Washington, I mean, 8
It's good for the clubs. They get an extra month of
Right,
practice, but it's
it's
not good enough to make me watch.
It's an extra.
You'll watch, but
Right.
even though you don't like them.
January 3rd, the Birmingham Bowl. Florida,
At least I know where that is.
who's ushering in a new quarterback, the Gators, a new coach, I should say, the Gators are, against East Carolina, who had the epic collapse against Central Florida in their title game where they give up the Hail Mary. I'm sorry, Florida and East Carolina from Birmingham is an automatic X. I mean, you want to chime in, go right ahead.
No, you said it all.
And I know Florida's got a new coach, but I don't think he'll be coaching this game. I think this will
No,
probably be,
I think one of the
right.
coordinators will take it.
Yeah, so there's nothing really to watch
Right.
there. The January 4th...
Unless you want to watch Ruffin McNeil screw up again on the sideline
Right.
with clock management and game decisions.
Yeah, don't get me started on that game. January 4th, the GoDaddy Bowl.
Is Danica Patrick going to be there in a bikini?
She usually is there. I don't know what the attire will be, but believe it or not,
If she's there in a bikini, I'll watch. Otherwise, no.
right
interest.
in Mobile, Alabama, of all places.
I've been to Mobile. I've spent time there.
Arkansas State and Toledo. So you're familiar with this part of the
Yeah,
country.
they'll all be liquored up by halftime.
But the matchup of Arkansas State Toledo does not do it for you.
No.
And of course, then we have our Final Four: the Rose Bowl, Oregon, FSU,
Huge check marks. Huge check marks.
Right,
Excited about both of these
and
matchups.
Sugar Bowl, Alabama,
I
Ohio
love
State.
them. I know the point spreads say that one team is decisively better than the other, and they may be right. But I think there's a lot of intrigue in these matchups based on styles, coaching matchups, and everything else, and I'm going to be very, very entertained.
By the way, when's the last time you saw Florida State 9.5-point underdogs to anybody? I can't remember when it was. I mean, that is unbelievable.
What I don't want to get into preview of these because we'll save it, but what I will say is one thing. Watch out for Florida State's offense because they finally figured out how to run the football.
And
that's a nugget for
and
you.
they'll have a month to kind of get rejuvenated. They look like they were running on empty with all these close games. Now maybe they get a little, and I want to see.
Hopefully their quarterback doesn't get thrown out of school.
And here's another thing. I want to see Oregon.
Because didn't they have his hearing?
Right.
His honor code hearing or whatever they call it.
I want to see Oregon do it in a big spot finally. I don't want to see Oregon, play one of these soft games again. I mean, we've seen Oregon.
Oh, what do you mean, get run over like they do all the time?
Yeah, I want to see Oregon, show me something, especially on defense. I want to see if Oregon...
Well, that's always the issue.
Right, can they do it?
Offensively, they can keep up with anybody.
Right.
They can spread it out. They're creative. They have all these playmakers, speed. Defensively, they're fast, but they're small and they get worn down. And sometimes when they have to step up against the quote-unquote big boys in a big spot, they get run over like they're standing still.
Absolutely. But we love the new Final Four. We love the settings, the Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, and then Dallas Cowboys Stadium for the final game. So we love the Final Four.
Man. They had a home run. This was a great college football season. If they could follow this up next year, boy, they're going to hit another home run.
So even though I'll be watching all the bowls, I didn't like too many of them. But there's 39 games.
I liked a couple more.
Right.
I think you liked 3 or 4. I might have liked 6 out of the 39.
Right.
The difference is Mike will... I watch as much college football as anybody. Mike will probably watch most of, if not all, 39.
Right.
I'll probably watch about the 6 I talked about, and I'll probably start my transition towards the NBA and towards, college basketball in a major way because, to be honest with you can't watch everything and things are on against each other. I have to make some choices because I only got 2 eyes.
Right. Now, Joe will be back in probably 2 weeks, and we're going to pick, of course, the Final Four. And we're going to pick, all the games you liked here, some of the bigger games, most of the ones
you lay it out,
I'll get a
handle on which way you want to go.
I'll get the Final Four plus.
Because I think most of our loyal watchers do not want to hear a preview of some of these games.
Right.
They don't want to hear me wax rhapsodically about the Rice Owls. Which I could do for 20 minutes, which is sad.
We'll stick to the Final Four and some of the bigger games and some of the ones you put a big check mark next to.
Absolutely.
We'll throw a couple more in there. You take them home, go ahead.
Absolutely. If you want to catch more of me, Sports Byline Broadcast Network, Spano and Black Attack. Check your local listings, 7 to 10 Eastern Time. Just go to Sports Byline, www.sportsbyline.com. Find an affiliate near you. Channel 11 Morning News. Anytime there's a big story in national or New York sports, I'm there, usually 6:40 to 6:50 a.m. Eastern Time. That's how you can catch more of me. That's it, Mikey, huh?
Thanks to Joe. He will be back in 2 weeks. Like I said, we'll pick the Final Four, some other big college bowl games, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Have a great night. Take care.